I'm curious, if you make a donation to a nonprofit organization, I understood a long time ago that you could not make that donation in order to be used for a specific purpose.
Correct.
Is that true?
Well, that's not entirely true. For example, at the Point Foundation, we had donors, corporate donors, who specifically said they wanted the scholarship to go to someone who was in engineering or someone who, was in IT. So you can designate your gift, but of course, most organizations don't really want to be restricted in how they use that money, but it's entirely your privilege as a donor to specify.
Yeah, back in the 90s, when we were running No Harm, we had our members send letters to their insurance companies asking if they covered infant circumcision, and if they do, why, and if they're not, then why not. And we learned, and I have copies of these still on file, where they admit, they know that this is medically unnecessary and that it's a social custom, and their excuse for covering it was if they don't cover it, their competitors will, and they'll lose customers, so that those parents will go to another company for coverage. So by my estimation, what's really needed in terms of insurance companies is to have a level playing field, so they're not unfairly competing with each other, and that's basically why they still support it, as far as I know.
I think that makes sense. Almost every industry sector has a trade association. So I think where you start with an organization, with healthcare organizations, is with their trade organization, and get them to take a national position on it.
I'm just curious, how do you set up a nonprofit? Is there a system? Because I'm actually interested in doing that myself. Is there like a recommendation you have for starting a nonprofit? Is there a system that we could teach other activists how to use to create their own organizations?
Yeah, well, first of all, you have to get a tax ID number from the IRS. And then you have to apply for a 501c3, which is a designation for nonprofit organizations that they're tax exempt. All that takes time, and with the cuts in government services now, it may take much longer than you expect to get approvals, but that's where you start.
And just to follow up on that, Daniel, Intact Global was incorporated in March 22nd of last year, 2024, and then we applied for 501c3 June of 2024, and we heard back from the first time in the IRS in February. So that's like 8 months, right? And then we sent them a response back in March, so we're still waiting. But we went about as quickly as humanly possible, and we're about 12 months in, so it takes a while.
How much would that process cost the average person?
So the question was, how much would it cost to start a 501c3? So there's two different types of 501c3s. There's the easy version, which is like, don't quote me on this, but you can raise up to maybe 20K, maybe it's 50, somewhere along that. And that's probably 100, 200 bucks, something like that. It's much quicker. The full freight 501c3 cost is $600. And there are certain applications you can use nowadays to say, look, you're a lawyer and you're going to help me with, fill this in, right? So you can do it for 600 bucks, but you have to have great patience. And as Joe mentioned, with the cuts in services, times might increase unless they outsource it to AI agents, in which time they may decrease. So we don't know. Okay, I got a question for you, Joe.
Yeah.
So how do we effectively thank donors? Like, what are good ways to thank them? Like writing them emails and including them in, like, what's the best way or different ways?
Well, you have a hierarchy of donors, right?
Yeah.
So, the people who give the most should get a handwritten note from you. Mm-hmm. The other ways to recognize them, as I said, are in the annual report, at the annual conference or dinner, through swag. Merchandise. There are innumerable ways to thank donors, but you can't thank them enough. Thank them at least 3 times a year, if not more.